Can do. Welcome to the 2025 preseason Coaches Show here at Wings and Rings in Somerset on Highway 27. Be sure to come here and check out their amazing selection of food. They got all the burgers, wings, hot stuff, mild stuff, barbecue stuff that you want. Adam Bray here with Lake Cumberland Sports next to Somerset High School head coach Clay Clevenger. I know the boys are ready for season 119 and they've been working all summer for it.
Yeah, I mean, they have been. It's it's that time of year. I think we're all kind of tired of practicing. We're looking forward to being able to go out, and compete a little bit, on Saturday night this opening week. And most of these guys have really been working hard since January, and so it's just that time of year, and hopefully guys are excited and ready to roll.
Yeah, one thing to practice all summer, you're hitting your buddies constantly, but whenever you see another opposing color lining up from you, it just feels a little bit different. You got a little extra pep in your step, and you just want to compete on a Saturday night, which is the season opener, as you mentioned. And before we get into that actual game, which we'll touch on briefly, I want to talk about how the team has grown individually. We got a lot of young guys coming up here for the Briar Jumpers. Got a lot of guys that have been here for a long time and have been pretty much since they set foot on campus contributing as freshmen and sophomores. Can you tell us about how the team's grown this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, we've grown physically just from the work that they've put in the weight room. We're bigger and we're faster. The returning guys, that really goes for all of them, because our 8th grade group from last year, our current freshmen, they joined us, after Christmas in January at 6 a.m. weights, a lot of them, and that really helped propel them to where I think some of them are going to be ready to step on the field and help out immediately. And so, it's just it's one of those things. It's a grueling off season. Football is. It's kind of a delayed gratification sport, which is unheard of anymore. We're not playing a ton of games throughout the year. You get 10 regular season games, but you're working 10, 11 months for those. And so, the reward is the game, and hopefully our guys are ready to go out and really attack that and get after it this year.
Absolutely, we sure hope so. There's been a lot of changes this offseason. I mean, the field house has been obviously deconstructed, and they're starting construction on a new one, and you guys have been kind of had to rehoused across the baseball field inside of the old field house there, and you all had camp in Virginia due to the imminent deconstruction of the field house. Can you tell us a little bit about how that was different for you?
Well, obviously we're excited about the facilities that our school board and Mr. Lively have been able to approve and are in the process of building. I think we're going to have, one of, if not the nicest high school football facility in the state. I tell everybody I think we're going to have the third best in the state of Kentucky behind Kentucky and Louisville University. So it's going to be really, really nice when it's completed. In the time being, I can't brag on those entities enough, the school board and Mr. Lively for our current field house situation, which is in an old baseball hitting facility. They kind of came in and revamped it, put some bathroom, did a lot of stuff. We were able to fit, our full weight room, 60 lockers in it. And it's probably as nice or if not nicer than what a lot of high schools have, currently. And so, we're excited about that. We're excited about, the future and the construction. But, this year I want to make sure that, these seniors especially, a lot of these guys are 3-year starters, have been in the program, obviously for 4 years, but the 3 years that I've been here. And so, that I think when it was all first announced, there was kind of sad, and yes, we're sad that the old field house is gone, but I think they're excited about the upcoming season and, the future ahead.
Absolutely. The future is exciting for Somerset football. There were several, impact senior players who graduated in May, but the returning roster, particularly that defense, is really stout. They were a great unit last year. They did lose a little bit on the back end, but the front seven in particular is going to be really stout. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those guys and how they're going to be forming a leadership role now that they're upperclassmen officially?
Yeah, you hope the leadership role is going to be big. I mean, if you start looking at our front seven, you've got kind of anchored by our nose guard, Cam Alsop, who's a 3-year starter. You got Jacob Bartley and Zach Carter, who are both 3-year starters at our defensive end. Austin Lawless, who's an outside linebacker, who's a 3-year starter. So, 4 of your 5 front guys are 3-year starting returners. Our other outside linebacker, we moved Corbin Samala up to that, and so he was a starter last year at safety. And then inside linebacker-wise, John Reynolds, who's our returning leading tackler, is a 2-year starter coming back, and then Drew Lawson, he started at tight end for us last year. We kind of moved him to the other side of the ball. So there's a lot of experience, a lot of age in that, in that front 7, and and our back end is going to be tested early. South Laurel is going to come out and they're going to throw the ball a lot, with Coach Hines, and but it's going to be important that we get those guys. Hopefully, we can get good pass rushes and help protect those guys a little bit in the back end because we are going to be young.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a perfect opportunity for them to just kind of get thrown right into the fire. I mean, Coach Hines has always been air raid, and he's really implemented that over the last couple seasons when he took over the Cardinals program. So who are some new names that we're going to start hearing on Friday nights that we've maybe not heard?
Well, I think, right now, secondary, Chris Hughes will probably start at free safety for us. He's a young man, obviously, that's a 3-year starter on the back end, so it's good to have that experience kind of in the middle of the secondary in the defense. Tanner Smith's a young man that moved back to us, and he's a senior. He's got some good playing experience, but transferred back into us this off season. He's had a good off season, and I like his motor and his ability to tackle. And in our corners right now are Drew Anderson, who's a freshman, but Drew's a young man that's very talented guy. He's a very smart, high IQ player. And, excited about him. And then Jet Boyd, who's our other corner. So Jet's a sophomore, played quite a bit last year as a freshman for us. And, he's both of those guys, while they're a little younger in age, both Jet and Drew, they've played a lot of football. They've played in a lot of the all-star games, and they've just played in a lot of football as middle schoolers. And so they've got quite a bit of experience, even though their age, it says they're a freshman and sophomore on the roster.
So we're going to transition a little bit to the offensive side of the football. Of course, quarterback for 3 years, had graduated, and there's a little bit of a competition brewing between, E-Step and Lofton. So can you tell us a little bit about that and how they've dealt with that over this summer?
Yeah, it's been a good, healthy competition, and, both guys have competed well. And, so I think, we'll probably be, going with Lofton to start. He gives us a little bit of an ability to, in the run game to be able to do some things. And so, but, I think, we also got Chris Hughes, who practices quite a bit at quarterback, because sometimes, you throw a sophomore out there that's not quite ready. We're able to get Chris reps, and has the ability to come in and play that position as well. So, I think that's a good spot. We got, I think a good solid line in front of him. We've got good skilled kids around him to go be able to make plays, and so we're excited about that.
Digging into the offensive line and the skilled players specifically, we mentioned the quarterbacks. We mentioned Chris Hughes, who is going to see a lot of action pretty much wherever he is. And you said, earlier this week you were talking about trying to take a little bit of the pressure off of him and get playmakers the ball. So who are some of those playmakers, and who are the guys that are going to be anchoring it up front?
Well, I think up front we have Zaysha Jones, who's a junior, but he's a 3-year starter, at our left guard spot, and he's a young man that has played a lot of football and been a really good football player for us. Landon Huseman, our center, is a sophomore, but he started last year every game as a freshman, so he's a 2-year starter coming back. Lane Pointer started last year at right guard, so our front 3 guys. Pointer's been injured. Dayton Coots has come in and looks good at playing guard, and so those, I feel solid about that. Caden Bean, who started last year at right tackle, is back as a senior, and so he's another starter that we have up front. And then our left tackle, Jake Bartley played a lot of that last year, went both ways. We've had a young man, Christian Alsabrook, who's a freshman, who's got really good size, that has come in and just had a really, really fantastic camp. And we try to, as much as possible, platoon our line, especially just because it's so hard to play, especially early in the year. So he's given us the ability, hopefully to rest Jake, let Jake kind of concentrate on the defensive side of the ball. So those 5 guys, and I mentioned, Dayton Coots, who that gives us a 6-man, good rotation. Collier Speaks is another freshman that has come in and had a good camp for us. And so we've got a little bit of depth there. We're not real old, but we got some guys that can play for sure. And so then, Jax Griffiths, who started a lot for us last year at receiver, has moved down to tight end. And Jax is just a really neat kid. I don't think he's missed a day in 3 years. He's a hard worker, just does everything you ask, and he doesn't say boo. You would never know he's in the room. So he's a young man that's kind of a gritty kid that plays in there at tight end. Corbin Samala obviously had a good year for us last year, kind of in the slot, and I expect him to be able to make plays for us. And then you got, on the edge, you got Alex Decker, who's a freshman, and Xavier Woolridge, who's a freshman, and James Brown, who's a sophomore. And those 3, as outside receivers, have all looked really good. They're young, but they're talented. Alex and Xavier, kind of like the Jet and those guys, they've played a lot of football. They've played in a lot of all-star games and played, all throughout the United States. And so they're talented, and they're a lot. They don't look like freshmen on the field. And so we feel like we got some guys that can go make plays, and we got to put them in positions to be able to do that.
And it's good to have young, hungry players on the roster. It sounds like we got a wealth of them. So we've talked about the guys who are going to be, seeing pretty much immediate action on Friday nights, but we'd like to give a little bit of a spotlight to the kids we may not be hearing immediately on Friday nights, but they're going to be maybe big JV players this year who are a little bit lower on the depth chart right now.
Well, we've only got about 36 kids right now on the roster. And with that said, I would throw any of them out there at any point. I got a lot of confidence in them. You take a Xavier Hudson, he's going to be rolling in at inside linebacker. He's going to be rolling in the backfield. You're going to see him carry the ball. You're going to see him be a lead blocker. He's just kind of a Swiss Army knife type of football player. It's a sophomore. It's a really good player. He might not be starting, but he's going to be tired by the end of the game. I can go down the line. Damian Davis, who's a young man that just works extremely hard, and he's going to be on kickoff this week because he's worked so hard. I'm going to reward him and get him a shot, and maybe even with some more special teams. And Chance Fisher's a young man, started for us the Mercer scrimmage at safety as a freshman, came up, made some really nice plays. I won't hesitate at all to have to put him in the game. Julian Carroll, who's our kicker, who's rated in the top in the nation as both punter and kicker as a sophomore. So he's hopefully gives us an advantage in our kicking game. Jacoby Brashears is a young man that has come out and joined is a freshman who's a very skilled kid. He starts center field in baseball pitches, starts point guard in basketball, has as good a speed as anybody on our team, and so I'm excited about him and his future. Just going down, Ethan McChrystal is a young man that you're going to see roll in and play a lot in the secondary for us. Gabe Pendry is another young man that you're going to see roll in on some special teams. Tristan Larkham's a young man that's new to our program that's a big physical kid that can run. Again, you'll see him on special teams. Channing Hudson's another freshman, kind of Swiss Army knife. Him and Xavier are brothers, and they're almost peas in a pod. They're just physical, hard-nosed kids that you can put in a variety of places because they're just good football players. Got him. Jack Dalton's a young man that has joined our program that is just a work hard and goes out there and does everything that he can to help us. You go down the line. I talked about Collier Speaks, who's a young lineman. Logan Pointer, he suffered a kind of probably a season-ending ankle injury. He had a good off season, but he's a young man that hate it for him. Dayton Coots talked about, and Braden Morrow is a young man that you're going to see play some defensive line for us. He played for us as a freshman, didn't play last year, came back out this year, so he's kind of getting revamped and into it. Lane Pointer, we talked about, he's going to be one of our starting guards. Sebastian Cundiff's a young man that is he's a slippery little defensive lineman that gets in, and he's just hard to block. And so I pretty much went down the roster right there. But every single one of our kids, I have confidence in them helping us be able to win on Friday nights, and we're excited about that group and hoping to be able to get some JV games. We're a little thin on numbers, but we still plan on trying to play it. And I think while we don't have 50 or 60 kids out there, the quality of our 35 or 36 is really, really high, and that's what is exciting.
Exactly. I mean, when you're 36 deep, that's pretty good depth. I mean, considering things, it seems like you had something great to say about just about every kid on the roster. So, hats off to you and the program that you're building. Speaking of that, it's your third year coming into Somerset. So talk a little bit about the culture that you've tried to build here in the football program.
Well, obviously coming in for Coach Lucas, and there wasn't a rebuild that needed to happen. I do think that, obviously with Coach and dealing with his sickness for a couple years, and, there's just a lot going on there. And so, I think maybe some fresh blood, fresh ideas, some things like that, were a positive change. Not that it had to happen, but it did, and I would like to think that it's been positive. Kids in the community have really rallied around and bought in really quick. I tell you who's bought in the fastest was the coaching staff. I look at Castle Hatcher and Kagan Skidmore and Ty Tevis and those guys who are alum that came in and joined me and bought in. And so I think once that happened, that helped me a lot. You got Brandon Brooks, who's bought in from day one and really does an outstanding job with our youth league. So if you go, I hope the Somerset fans will come out Friday night. You can come out at 6 o'clock. Our sixth grade team plays, and at 8, after that game at 7:30, our eighth grade team plays. We're doing that on kind of as a bowl weekend type of deal. It's something that I want to start, but we're going to play on Saturday. But we want those young kids to be able to come out and play on a Friday night early in the season, get that experience. And what you're going to see is you're going to see a sixth grade team that runs some of the plays that the varsity does and probably does it a little bit better. And you're going to see an eighth grade team that's going to look like a carbon copy of what we're going to look like on Saturday night. And that just goes because those guys have bought in. Castle's bought in, and he's really done a great job, along with Sean Sandusky. And, Max has been around. And those guys, Evan Brinson, and, have worked really hard with the middle school program. Again, I can't say enough for Brandon and the work that he puts in with that youth league, especially that 5th and 6th grade team. And they won a state championship last year, and he's loaded for bear again. So, we're excited about our future. Obviously, we're going to have the facilities that are going to be the nicest in the state. And I think we're building a program where, I expect our 8th grade team to be right there in the hunt for a state championship. I expect our 7th grade team to be right there in the hunt to win a state championship. I expect our 6th grade. Now we got to make sure, we've been in the semis the last couple of years, and can we take another step forward?
Awesome. Well, Kagan, Castle, and Ty are guys that you actually coached against when they were players, when you were with Danville, and then, of course, they were at Somerset. And someone else that you've got some experience coaching against. We're going to save most of this for our actual pregame show, but we're going to kind of go down a little bit about Saturday night's game, going against South Laurel and Coach Johnny Hines for the season opener at the Briar Patch. So I know you guys coached against each other in 17 and 18 and traded wins. Is there any other history with you guys?
No, Johnny and I have known each other for a long time. When I first started coaching back in, I think, 2001, I was coaching at University of the Cumberlands, and I had this area as a recruiting base. And so I would come through Somerset, and most of the time you could hit 5 or 6 schools in a day. And if I came to Somerset at that time, I could hit all 3, and that's about it, because Coach Anderson liked to talk, Coach Cobb liked to talk about his program, and Coach Hines liked to talk about his kid and his program. And so got to know Coach Hines at that time pretty well just by coming through here. And then once kind of moved back to Central Kentucky there in 2013 to Danville. We were on some committees together at the state level. I was the president of Coaches Association there for 16 and 17 or 17 and whatever years it was, and Johnny was took over for that a couple years after that. So we've talked a lot. I consider Johnny a friend of mine, and I'm excited about being able to bring him over and us being able to play, the South Laurel group.
Yeah, it'll certainly be a test. And I mean, we kind of just looked down the schedule. It's a completely different schedule from last year. It's I think you said the first time that you've never had to reschedule a team from last year going into the current year. Is that correct?
That is correct. I mean, it's almost unheard of, I think. I mean, but it's most of the time if your district changes, it might change one or two teams. But we went from far east to now we're going to the western side. We went from District 7 to now we're District 3. So, so that was a big change for us with all new teams. We're in a 5-team district, which is new. I've never been in a 5-team district before, so that added a little bit of a scheduling deal because you see so many 4-team districts. So you had to be able to find another non-conference or non-district game in the middle of district play. Being able to do that, set up a schedule, I think it was important. We wanted to start a bowl game. Obviously, we're doing that. Finding bowl teams and being able to find South Laurel, which we're playing in their bowl in week 2. So that was good to be able to work with somebody in that capacity. I think the community's excited about us playing a county school again and playing the team down south. And so, I hope to be able to – the plan on that is for all – to play Southwestern for the next 2 years in a home and home, and then after that, I hope to be able to play PC in that same week 3 spot in a home and home. And so, every kid that graduates through each program gets to play, at least all 3 schools in that game, at least a couple of times in their career. And like how the schedule is set up. We're getting a big test here early with 2, good 5A football programs in the first 3 weeks, which it should test us.
Absolutely. And I think it definitely speaks to the community. They have been anticipating this for a long time. It's been 11 seasons since Somerset and Southwestern have played. And I know you kind of want to keep it just another game, and you definitely don't want to look ahead where we're sitting before week 1. But I know a lot of people are anticipating that game. But touching on coaching specifically, you've been doing this for a long time. I mean, you pretty much lived and breathed football, I'd say, from the time you were old enough to walk, with being from sports royalty here in Kentucky. But what do you think in your coaching journey has separated the X's and O's from the basics, to the next level where you're just like, okay, it's more than just, the play sheets and the pregame, prep and stuff. There is something deeper to this, and I need to take myself to the next level.
I think just trying to take a day-to-day approach. I mean, I think just getting up every day and try to win the day and try to work your butt off for that day and then go to bed and get up and try to do it again. And I feel like that's been my mindset. I think that was instilled in me by my parents, because that's what I saw day in and day out. And, there wasn't there wasn't a lot of foo-foo stuff. It was you get up and you get your job done and you get your work done and you work hard, you play hard. I mean, that's kind of been my life motto a little bit. And so, I think that's important when you're going into, if you're taking over a new program, let's say, is that you don't get caught up in too much of the outside noise or the outside this and that. You got to get in there and you got to start working the program and letting the program hopefully then begin to start work for you. I feel like I've kind of learned how to do that and with experience and so that's what we hope to see. You hope to see freshmen that are or eighth graders that when they walk in as freshmen, they know our terminology and they can just kind of pick up and they know where the weight room is and they know what the expectations are. And so there's no fall off there. And then if they can play and they're good enough, they can get out on the field and help you. And and so that's what you want it to build. And then it just, if you get that going, it's like a flywheel. It starts rolling faster and faster and faster. And our word for the year was compete. I think that just understanding that you can compete on a daily basis with your brother, with your teammate, that's only going to make you better. And if you line up and you wake up every day and you're ready to compete, you're going to have a chance to be successful. And some days you're going to get beat. Some days, I tell them some days, it's like that turtle. You might get your head chopped off, but the biggest thing is you got to get back up and go. And so, being able to do that, and so I think that. That's where I've always probably prided myself on more. I'm probably not a great X and O's guys. It's just getting the kids to hopefully buy in and work hard and get good at some fundamental football and then go out and play hard.
Yeah, I mean, judging on the season successes and just the way that the players are developing, I definitely think that they're buying in, and it's great that you are a part of that and you can see it as well. Regarding Somerset specifically, I know you've had a long coaching career, and you've been at some very storied and tradition schools. What is probably your favorite Somerset high school tradition?
Ooh, they do a lot of good stuff here. Jumper walk. I mean, I've like the first night, I think we played Russell County the first year, and that was awesome. But then, last year with the Perry County Central game, with kind of how that game ended my first year, and then having jumper walk, I mean, but just the excitement that when you see those kids in the band turn that corner right up in the corner, they're on Barnett Street, and then they just keep coming, and they keep coming, and they keep coming. They're just walking down the street, and it feels like there's thousands and thousands of them. And when they enter the stadium, it's pretty cool. Like I've told a lot of people, that's probably the coolest moment that I've had as a coach, as far as just the atmosphere and what that does. The old school homecoming floats and having the kids go up to the bus garage and build floats each night and see the community come together. That's really cool. That's how I grew up. That's what I can remember, building floats on tobacco wagons and stuff. And so just to see that they've kept some of these traditions, some of these small town football traditions that have gone away in some communities, that Somerset's really worked hard to keep those going. And it's a tradition-rich school system, and they're proud of their traditions as we should be.
Absolutely. I mean, the jumper walk, I can remember as a middle schooler when they first did that. I think I was in 7th or 8th grade or so whenever that was officially implemented, and it's just been getting bigger ever since. And kids really enjoy doing that. The parents enjoy doing that. I mean, really just the whole community does. Now, we always ask the players these types of questions, but you may not. I'm trying to think of, like, I don't know if he's going to. What kind of answer he's going to give me on this one. But as far as like a pregame hype, I picture you as like you don't really have the time to listen to a bunch of music pregame, but I could be wrong. But just in general, if you're getting hyped for like a workout or whatever, what types of music are you going to be tuning into?
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting old. I'm not the hype guy anymore. I listen to a variety of music. Or I have for years. I mean, mostly it's either rap or country, so it's one extreme or the other, maybe. I kind of, if I want to revert back to my high school, college days, I might go back to some 90s rap, some Tupac or some things like that. But, just good country music is what I typically listen to.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm with you on both of those, 90s hip-hop and old school country. I'm down with all that as well. And like I said, you're essentially sports royalty. You may not like that term here in Kentucky, but I mean, just what your parents and grandparents and stuff were able to do, I mean, it's pretty impressive, and it's obviously followed on with you and your kids. What grades are they in right now?
We got an 8th and a 6th grader. Rush is an 8th grader. Bo's a 6th grader.
Awesome. And how did you come up with those names exactly? Those are pretty interesting names.
My wife's maiden name is Russell, and so that's actually his first name. We did want something football related, and so we kind of just did the Rush thing, and then Bo I don't know, we just thought Bo sounded cool and went with it, and it fits him pretty good. He's kind of just a Bo, so he's my little wild guy. So that's but the first one was a little bit football themed for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I kind of figured that, but I just wanted to get clarity on that for sure.
Yep.
What are some things you like to do? I mean, you pretty much live, eat, and breathe football, but outside of sports and when you're just unwinding and it's just you and the world, what do you like to do?
Well, I enjoy all sports. I mean, my boys play, basketball and baseball. They've wrestled for a while. I think it's important for kids to play multiple sports and not, so I'm big on that. In the off season, a lot of times you're going to see me at, Somerset basketball games, and in the spring you'll see us at baseball games if we're not doing something. In the summertime we enjoy the lake. I've enjoyed Lake Cumberland for 30 years, and so just moving this much closer has been that much nicer. So we used to drive in on the weekends. When I lived in Henderson, it was a 3-hour drive. Then we moved closer, and it was an hour and 15 minutes from Danville, and now we've got a little place over in Eli, and I can be there in 30 minutes. And so that's nice. We enjoy getting out on the boat and having some family time. And, I also, my dad has a farm in Lincoln County, and so I get over there and try to help him do that, quite often. I enjoy it. That's something else I enjoy. So we stay busy. I mean, there's not a lot of sit down time in our household. We're pretty much always on the road.
Yeah, I kind of was assuming a very busy life, especially with the kids' sports, and also I was figuring lake, it would be some sort of leisure for you and the family.
Yep.
We're going to go back to your playing days, not like any stories necessarily if you don't want to, but for the best lesson you learned as a football player, translating to coach and disseminating that to the players.
Well, I was, I've been really, really blessed in the mentorships that I've gotten from coaches, and I guess it's by chance, but obviously, grew up, came through the Danville football program. My brother played for Tom Duffy, who won 4 state championships. So I heard and saw that. Then I obviously played for Coach Harp, who won, 7 state championships and over 300 games. Followed that by going to Carson Newman, where we played in 3 national championship games in the 5 years I was there. Coach Sparks was the head coach there for over 30 years. When he retired, I think he was number 6th on the all-time college wins list with over 330 college wins and 5 national championships. So, I've played for coaches that when Coach Harp and Coach Sparks that won probably close to 700 games and 12 championships. So, I was blessed from that standpoint and learned a lot of lessons from both of them. And, and there's been other, Coach Alvis Johnson that was at Harrodsburg for a long time. I grew up with Coach Johnson, Derek and Dennis and Craig East and all. We all played on the same Little League team. And so, Coach Johnson was always very, I felt like he was a mentor and good to me. So I've just been really blessed when it comes to that. And, my 1 year as an assistant in the high school ranks before getting a head job was under Larry French, who Coach French is, he's at, 360 or 70, wins. So, I've got to give a lot of the credit to the successes that I've had, outside of my parents and the work ethic that they taught me, and my older brother who pushed me, and my older sister who really, we just have a competitive family. But then, and then talking about those coaches, that I did. And then, nowadays it's about, I couldn't do what we do family-wise or anything else without my wife, Kate. And she's a blessing and has signed off on, the move to Somerset and the move from Henderson to Danville. She loved Henderson and to go back home on that. And so she's kind of been along for the ride on some of this and, does a great job, obviously, raising the boys. And she has her own career as a sign language interpreter. And so, I can't, I'm a blessed person and really, I think that helps me get up every day and go to work because I've seen it happen, and there's been a lot of people that's helped me get to where I'm at, and I'm appreciative of it.
Absolutely. We're going to loop back a little bit towards some of the kids. Who surprised you the most, over this off season when the way that they developed? I think you kind of touched on someone earlier.
Well, I think that as a group, we've just, I don't know if I could point to one person that's progressed, more than anybody. I mean, they've all got in there and they've just worked hard. They just work day in and day out. They show up, they work. Not every day is a great day, but but we've had a lot more great days than bad days, and so that's what makes this group fun. I think that there's a genuine love for each other in the locker room, which I think is fun to be around. I don't, and so. I'm anxious to watch these guys play. I mean, they've put in the work, they put in the time. We're not going to be perfect. We don't coach robots. They're 15 to 17, 18-year-old kids that they're going to make mistakes. And, I'm going to get mad when they make mistakes and expect better. But in the end of the day, I'm proud of how hard this group has worked. And, I don't foresee that falling off as the season, goes along.
Now, do you think that stuff's going to be a little simpler in the beginning of the season, and like it's going to kind of progress as far as the game plans go, just naturally?
I do. I mean, I think every team takes on a different identity, and I think as a coach, one thing I have learned is that you don't want to pigeonhole a team. You want to kind of, it's good for them to get their identity, and so 2 years ago. With Cam, we were a really good zone running football team. Last year we kind of started out trying to be that. We weren't as good with it, and we went to more of a gap scheme type of run scheme, and I think that fit Chris's skill set a little better. And so I think, as being able to kind of adjust, I think we have a system on both sides of the ball that we can kind of do some slight adjustments, and it's not. We don't have to throw a lot out or add a lot new. We can just adjust and tweak here and there, and to where we get a base of stuff that we do, and we try to do it really well.
Absolutely. Going back to kind of your coaching history, I know you mentioned about who you played for, but who are some guys that you coached under early on in your coaching career, like in your coaching tree, that you can really credit as well with them helping out, helping instill these values in you?
Well, my first job was under Chuck King, who came to the University of Cumberland. He had been an assistant at Carson Newman when I played, and then he got the job as I graduated, so I came in with him as a GA, and then spent 5 years with him. Built my way up to where I was a defense coordinator, for those last two. But when I was working under him, I also worked for under a defense coordinator for a couple of years named L.T. Helton, who was an older gentleman that had coached at, ETSU, Middle Tennessee State, Tennessee Tech. He had a lot of Division I, AA coaching experience. Learned a lot from him, and how to prepare. I mean, he was a meticulous guy as far as how he prepared and how hard he worked. And then when I left the college ranks, I came to Lincoln County High School with Coach French. I was only there with Coach for a year, but I learned a lot about how to deal with kids. And Coach French is a master of dealing with young men, and so just kind of how he dealt with them, how he motivated them, how he handled the kids, and I think that I learned a lot from that. And then obviously I got an opportunity at 29 or 30 to be a head coach, and so you try to take some of that and you try to go with it. And probably wasn't great there early, but again, it's just like anything else. You kind of evolve. You learn. You learn lessons on what to do, what not to do, and you hope that. At the end of the day, you hope you're doing right by the kids. I want to win games. You'd love to win championships, but when you I ran into a young man. I was getting my oil changed in Danville probably about a month ago, and kid I had in the first 2 years I was at Danville, and he's selling cars, and he comes up and gives me a big hug and said, "Coach, you don't understand how much you changed my life." And so those types of interactions probably mean more than a championship, because those are things that are going to affect generations to come.
Absolutely. Mentioning Danville, where you had success, you won state title in 2017. I was there for a lot of your all's games that year, just an excellent roster. But Danville and Somerset, of course, they're not playing this season for the first time in, I don't really know exactly how long. You might know, but it's been a long time. But what was it like transitioning from that school, which in some ways is really similar to Somerset tradition-wise? Of course, Danville has a lot more titles, but they were rivals for many, many years. What was it like getting that call for the first time?
Well, I was out of coaching for a couple, as far as head coach, for a couple years following that, and I didn't know if I was going to coach again. I was kind of at peace with that. The first year out, I coached, Rush, my oldest, is, third and fourth grade football team, and had a blast doing that. And then the next year, I went over and helped Center College and coached with them, and had a really good time doing that. That was kind of fun to go back to the college level, and I couldn't put as much time as I really wanted to because I was still teaching high school, and then would go out after. But it was going to have to be the right situation for me to get back into it. There were certain things that I was going to look for, and when obviously Coach Lucas passed, you don't want to see the reason why the Somerset job opened. But kind of got to talking to some guys that I knew, in the Somerset, and I think that there was some mutual interest, and you go ahead and you act on it, and then kind of the rest is history, so to speak. But Somerset's obviously, it's a tradition-rich school. They love their football here, and they want to be successful. So, and the biggest thing, I think what I learned from Danville is that you gotta. I knew this, but I experienced it firsthand. You gotta have an administration that's rooting for you and pulling for you and not pulling against you. And I can't say enough about Mr. Wesley as the principal and Miss Baker, who's assistant principal, and how they lead Somerset High School. Tremendous stuff going on in the hallways day in and day out with them and the faculty there. And then, Mr. Lively and his vision for the, for the whole district, and being a kids first person. I love working in that type of environment where it's about the kids. It's not about adults. It's not about egos. It's about how can we, do right by the kids and give them opportunities to succeed. And so that mindset and that vision, it makes it easier to come in and coach football for sure.
And we'll make this last question quick, but, obviously we've got some former players from Somerset that are on the sideline helping coach, some up in the booth. Who are some guys right now on the roster that you could see in the future potentially being good coaches? Not saying that they will be, but they would be good coaches if they tried.
Yeah, before I start there, I mentioned my three guys that are Somerset guys. I need to mention, Zach Tibbs, who's running our offense, is doing a good job. He's in his second year here with me, and, he's working extremely hard. Appreciate him. Jared West is our linebacker and running backs coach. Again, he comes out, works hard with our kids. I don't know if I mentioned George Pappy Hatcher, but he kind of keeps us all in line and is a good sounding board for us. And then, Jason Rubel comes out and helps with our special team. So want to make sure, those guys, I couldn't do the things that I do without a good staff and without assistant coaches that work really hard for me. So as far as guys that current players, that I'd have to give that a little bit of thought. We got a lot. Austin Lawless is just a kind of a student of the game. He's a kid that I could see being a really, really good coach. Corbin Samala, he's so smart that he would be a great coach. He might be too smart to be a football coach. But there's a lot of guys really that are eat up with football, that enjoy football. Zaysha Jones, I think, would be a really good football coach. And the list goes on. I mean, there's really a lot that I would hire and like to keep in our program for sure.
Absolutely. Well, it's been Adam Bray with Coach Clay Clevenger of the Somerset High School Briar Jumpers football team from Wings and Rings here in Somerset. We're wrapping up this preseason show with Lake Cumberland Sports. Coach, it's good talking with you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
Good luck this season.
All right.
Thank you.
At Toyota of Somerset, we're known for great service before and after the sale, and so much more. Since 1988, Toyota of Somerset has been supporting our local communities. And we sell and service what a number of different rating services call the most fuel-efficient, dependable, and safe vehicles on the road. Toyota. Toyota of Somerset, South Highway 27 Somerset, and online at toyotaofsomerset.com. At Toyota of Somerset, we're all about
Here to come in 175, here to come in 175, 2. I 200 down, got it here to come in a quarter.
Like successful sports programs, putting together a successful auction takes a lot of planning, organization, attention to detail, and teamwork. And you need dedicated and committed people pulling together. At Ford Brothers Auctioneers, we've been successfully selling the country since 1965. Ford Brothers Auctioneers. Give us a call or visit us online at FordBrothersInc.com.
Ford Brothers Auctioneers, we're selling the country.
Buffalo Wings and Rings video on Lake Cumberland Sports. I'm Josh McKinney, the high school football coaches preview show. Pleased to be joined by Southwestern coach Jason Foley. Coach, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you.
How you been?
I'm doing good. Been doing well. How about you?
I cannot complain. Wouldn't do any good at all to complain.
That's good.
Coach, I always appreciate the time. Always look forward to this time of the year, and always kind of like to go retrospectively and then come forward, starting off with last year. Record-wise, 7-6 last year. I know you're not used to that, but man, that group last year, we documented it throughout the year. That group last year was a special group, even though that record's in 10 to 15 years, nobody's going to think about that record at 7-6. But that team last year had to work so hard for so many things. We documented it several times. That team had to work double, triple time to have success last year, seemed like.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had a lot of new pieces last year.
Yeah.
And, and a lot of new spots that was filled. And we had a talented group.
Absolutely.
But, I think the years prior to that led to a very, very difficult schedule and, competitive schedule.
Yeah.
And we kind of got it going, though, at the end. I felt like we sputtered a little bit early. But then you look up and we were playing for a region championship again.
Absolutely.
And actually, for a quarter and a half, played really well.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we had a lot of good kids. Did some good things last year. Obviously, I think that was our first season of not capturing that district title. We didn't like that, but they did some good things and they had some big wins and had some great kids and good players.
There's certain players on that team that were career players and players that you're going to talk about forever. And you mentioned starting off 0-3, then you won 3, then you went 2-2, but then as you mentioned, you got it going playoff time and ran into a Cooper team that you played, like you mentioned, you played stout for a quarter and a half, and then it's Cooper.
Right.
You finished 7-6, but that was a tough year last year, but a promising year because you saw a lot of great things from a lot of people last year.
Yeah. Well, we last year, one thing that really hurt us a lot was if you take some of those losses with just our turnovers.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that, but we, even the Cooper game, we're going toe-to-toe.
Yep.
And I think we had 4 or 5 turnovers in the game. You can't do that.
No.
And that was our Achilles heel. And it seems like throughout the season, just you look back to 4 or 5 of those losses, and it was just 3 to 4 turnovers in a half. And that's something that we've really been trying to focus on because we can't do that. You can't beat really good teams doing that. And it's been a point of emphasis for sure.
Interesting. Well, let's go ahead and get into this year, 2025 season, 7th season as head chief. That tells me that you're getting older. I see you're getting older.
Yeah, it goes by fast.
It does.
And I was talking to someone today about that. I think it was actually an official. I couldn't believe that it had been 7 years, going on 7 years, and but here we are. So year 7.
Well, as we like to do, you can take it however you like. I always like to start with the seniors. If you want to start with the seniors, that's a good group of seniors you got coming this year.
Yeah, and our senior class, it's a good group of seniors. It's not a real big class. It's actually one of our smaller senior classes that we've had in quite some time. But we've got some really good kids in it, and start off with Cam Allen. Cam Allen is a wide receiver, defensive back. He's really a hard worker. He's really come on from a year ago, and we're excited for what he can do. Zabry Cox, another senior. He is a returning starter, secondary, safety, cornerback, plays wide receiver. And then you've got Caden Daughtery. He's probably got about as much game time experience as any of those seniors. linebacker, one of our top 2 or 3 tacklers from last year. And he's also playing a big role for our offense this year at tight end and our H-back role. Nick Doan plays wide receiver, defensive back, another scrappy young man, just like Cam Allen. He's gritty, can count on him. We've got a new face in Kyson Harris. We're still learning about him, actually. He's just a new enrollee at our school. Devin Leclerc, I think everybody probably knows that name.
Hope so, anyway. Yeah.
And Devin's getting a lot of recognition, statewide, collegiate, and he's obviously a big-time offensive and defensive lineman. And we're excited for his season, all the hard work that he's put in. Randy Vu, he's a kicker for us, plays soccer. We've got him out, so we're excited about what he can bring to the table.
That's big.
Brody Walker, defensive lineman, he played a lot last year on our defensive front, and he's got a lot of game time reps, so excited to have him. And then we also have Kendall Wesley. Kendall Wesley played some twos for us last year at wide receiver and was really, really dominant at our JV level. And, man, he has really, really came on. And he's been a big-time playmaker for us in the spring and summer, and really excited about what he's going to do for us on the offensive side of the ball. And I think he'll fill in a little bit on defense too. But that kind of rounds out our seniors. Like I said, not a huge class. We've got some young men that's been in the program for a while, but a couple of new faces as well. But they are a solid core. They've showed good leadership in the off season, and I think they'll lead the way very well for us.
That's very important. And you mentioned some names in there that we're used to hearing on Friday nights, and with what you lost last year with this senior group, they've got an opportunity, seniors, to step up and, as you mentioned, great leadership already, and take over a role that you need.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, there's 3 or 4 of them that's played big roles already.
Absolutely.
And then you've got another 5 or 6 that's going to step into roles this year and take on new role and like I said, be those leaders both on and off the field. And they're a really close group. They're a close-knit group and very proud of how they've represented themselves as Warriors.
It's something odd to me, looking at what you lost last year to what you have coming back this year. Yes, you lost a lot of starters, but at the same point, you've got a lot of game time experience. You might not have the starters back, but a lot of those names you mentioned have plenty of game time experience at the varsity level.
Yeah, a lot of the kids that were backups last year, they got the opportunity to play a lot in varsity games.
Yeah.
So a lot of those kids that we just mentioned, that senior class. So they do have some experience. They may not have that starting experience,
True.
but they've got the experience, and hopefully they can come in and take even bigger roles this year.
I know I tell you this every year, but that's something I appreciate about you, not just playing your starters, and that's it. If a guy's putting in the work at practice and doing what needs to be done, you're going to get him playing time on Friday night. And that's beneficial when you lose what you lost from last year and keeping that cycle going.
Well, I mean, when you're in 5A and you're in a competitive class like we are and competitive schedule, you've got to have kids. You've got to develop kids.
Yeah.
And I'm always a believer in. I tell the coaching staff, make sure we have that second tier guy ready, that backup ready, because at any point they got to be ready to go, and that's something we really work. Even off season, in practices, we try to make sure we get our backups and our JV and our young kids ready to go.
Smaller senior class, but a quality senior class. How about your juniors?
Yeah, well, our juniors, this class was actually a group that's been really good. They had a good middle school run, and they've got really good skill kids in it, and a couple of good linemen too. Start with Zach Benedict. He plays quarterback for us. Can't say enough about Zach. His leadership, his confidence is through the roof right now. He's really playing well as far as in the early scrimmages and throughout the spring and summer, and so he's been a big leader for us, and he'll play some safety as well alongside quarterback. Caden Campbell, if people in the state don't know him, they're going to know him pretty soon.
They better find out quick.
He's not a good player. He's a great player. He's going to be playing big time football, in my opinion, in the future. So he's really, really come on, and we're excited about what he's going to bring. Colson Eichmann, their speedster.
Oh, dude.
He's our speedster. He's got the speed, guy that we like to get in space, make things happen. big time playmaker for us. He'll play some wide receiver, take some handoffs, and then he'll play in the secondary. Sam Framer, that's one of those kids, kind of like Kendall Wesley, who played a lot of JV, some backup role in varsity last year, but now he's going to be stepping into a starting linebacker role and plays a lot of tight end on offense. Big, strong kid, very, very coachable, and I think he's going to have a big season. Jordan Lewis, if you remember, Jordan started as a freshman for us at linebacker, and he's back. He'll be playing linebacker. He's one of our top running backs as well, and he's looked really, really good. He's explosive. He's strong, so he'll bring a lot to the table. Tayden Richardson. Tayden plays some quarterback, plays some wide receiver, and then he'll be playing a lot of safety for us on defense. He's a gamer, just really gritty, and he's one of those kids that his game rises in big moments, and so we're excited to have him. Gabe Strunk. Gabe Strunk has emerged. I mean, had a great off season in the weight room. He's playing center for us right now. He'll be playing some defensive tackle, defensive end for us defensively, but just moves well, strong kid, and high motor. Trent Talent, that's another big lineman for us. Be playing the offense and defensive line. I'm really proud of Trent. His speed has gotten him much better. He's always been strong, but his agility and speed's improved. So we're excited for what Trent. Zach Waters. He's had an outstanding offseason. Great kid, very coachable. He's a team player. He's going to be playing some guard for us and a little bit of defensive tackle as well. So we're excited for him. And it kind of rounds out our junior class.
Good group.
But it's a very good group. And like I said, combination of some skill and linemen in that class.
That's very rich group. And you mentioned Benedict coming back at quarterback. Then you got Richardson in there as well. And the speedster and Eichmann. Just seeing what he brought to your team last year, faster this year. You also mentioned a critical point, and I know you will be the first to admit you were living the high life for a lot of years with Nico. You didn't have to worry about anything, and then Hunter Osborne took over admirably last year. Young Gabe Strunk's got a big set of shoes to fill.
That's a very underappreciated.
Absolutely.
It's a very, very valuable position, and I think if you don't really know the game of football, you don't know how important that is.
Truth, absolutely.
And because you got it, that's the first thing offensively that's got to happen.
Absolutely, that's it.
You have to get the snap, and now Gabe is taking that role. And we've got some other guys. Jacob Kaiser, we'll mention him in a minute, and Devin LeClark. They can step in and play some center too. But Gabe has really taken on that role, and I'm proud of him.
Well, that explains why I saw Devin with the picture snapping the football on his mother's Facebook page. So that makes a little more sense now. I was wondering.
Devin does a little bit of everything.
He does. He always has.
He can play about any spot on that offensive line.
Well, that junior group is a really deep, talented group.
Yeah, I mean they've been a really good group for us all the way through, and I think they'll really carry a big load for us in our success this year, and and on to their senior year as well. But they've just got some big time impact players and playmakers in the group, and like I said, along with those 3 or 4 linemen too. So it's a good group.
That lineman, those line guys, they're so critical, and we'll talk about more about line in a second, and that's something else that you all have lived the high life on for several years with quality linemen that you knew that section was taken care of.
Well, yeah, I mean you can go back and look. We led the state in rushing for 4 years, and yes, you've got to have good running backs, but you don't do that without linemen, and it's all about the trenches. I've always said, in the big games. Your district titles, your region titles, your semis, the trenches is where it's at, and we really try to want to continue to have a good line of scrimmage, and I think the guys that we've got on the line this year, they've put a lot of hard work in. Their continuity seems really good right now. We're excited for what they can bring to the table.
Really important. That's a great junior group. Sophomores, what you got?
Sophomore class. We got Noah Burton. He's a speedster, kind of like Eichmann. Wide receiver, defensive back. He's got a lot of speed. We're excited to see his development. Landon Krause. You'll see Landon a lot on both sides of the ball. He plays defensive end, plays some offensive guard, a little bit of tight end for us. Very, very athletic lineman. Alex Davis, another really good lineman. Right now he's slotted to play right guard for us. just tremendous strength in his lower body, very, very coachable. Caden Durham, a young man that moved here for us, and he's big, about 6'5", 300. He's got to learn our system.
Wow.
He's new to our system, but we're excited for what he brings. Blake Haynes, if you remember, we remember Logan Haynes.
Yes.
Blake Haynes is Logan's younger brother, and Blake plays wide receiver, cornerback. Again, high energy. Very, very quick, very fast, good instincts. So he'll play a big role for us this year. Darnell Cavanaugh, he's new to the game, first-year player. Really, really strong kid, running back, linebacker. Once we can teach him the game and he gets some experience under his belt, I think he'll be a very impact player in high school for us. Jacob Kaiser, can't say enough about him. He's battled injury a lot his freshman year, and he has really, really came on and is a huge part of our offensive line right now. And just proud of him, proud of what he's been doing. And he'll be one of the key centerpieces for us, playing a little bit of guard and tackle on the O-line. Owen Phelps, he's a wide receiver, defensive back. He's new to our system, so we're still getting him acclimated to everything. Jaden Smith, another wide receiver, defensive back. Actually a half-brother to Kendall Wesley, and very, very athletic, and fast and quick, and can play both sides of the ball. And then these last two names, I think you'll probably remember. Jackson Staley. Played corner for us, ended up starting last year as a freshman. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
And he'll be playing corner. He'll be taking some handoffs out of the backfield too. That's something that he's embraced this offseason and done well with. And then Aiden Whitson, like Jordan Lewis, will be one of our 1-2 punches in the backfield, and he'll be playing some linebacker too. And nobody outworks Aiden Whitson, and we're excited for what he's got coming this year.
That sophomore group's another great group of guys you got.
Yeah, I mean they're like the junior class. They're pretty deep.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
They've got some good kids, and I think a lot of those kids will be asked to play some pretty significant roles this year.
And that's we keep talking about that offensive line, and you and I know you've been around long enough to know, and you see it every year. Those linemen get dinged up, get an ankle sprain, this, that, and the other, and it's next man up. And you all have done a really good job, plugging and playing, if you will. And it's kind of next man up, ready to go.
Right. Yeah. Well, you better have 8. You better have 8 or 9 ready.
Absolutely.
To go.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the varsity level.
Yeah.
That's not counting all of our freshmen and JV kids.
That's true.
But
Yeah.
you better have 8 or 9 ready, because there's going to be things happen, through the course of a season. And we try to take pride in making sure we've got, and I think we do have 8 or 9, and I think they're ready to go.
I hear a lot of wide receivers. You're going to throw it about 30, 40 times this year?
Well, you got some good wide receiver
You
bodies.
do, dude. I like that.
We can definitely get the ball to those guys, and we always like to run the ball too. But the wide receivers, not a whole lot of height, but very quick.
Yeah, I was going to say.
There's a lot of speed, a lot of quickness, a lot of slot top receivers that we have right now. So I think they can make some plays.
But you see that, you watch the pro game, you see these guys like Edelman, like that's you got one of those cats that can boogie, and you got a guy that can get it to him.
I mean, you just get the ball to him in space.
Absolutely.
In a quick game, and we've got some kids. Like I said, there's several that can fit that role. I mean, 5-10 kids in the program right now. That's good, very good slot receivers.
So I'll roll it back. 25, 35 times a game is what you're going to throw?
I might be pushing it a little bit.
I'm trying to get your own record.
But,
well, that's a good sophomore group. That's a really deep sophomore group, and names that we've heard before. Freshman-wise, what are you looking at?
Well, I really, really thank a lot of my freshman class, and they're our biggest class and very, very talented group. We've had some really good groups come through, Josh. I've been here since 2019, and I would put this group among the best that we've had.
Really?
And I think back to my first year or two, we had a really good group. If you remember,
absolutely,
the Christian Walden class, Nico Pasquarello class was awesome.
Yep.
But this group is very similar to that, and the reason I say that is they've got a lot of linemen and a lot of skill players, and they're very deep. I mean, we're looking at close to 25 in the class.
Wow.
And we're very, very excited about them. I've put a lot of time with them. I went over and worked with them as 8th graders, a lot of weight room time. They're young, not many of them, a lot of them 14 years old.
Oh, wow.
But a few 15-year-olds, but several 14-year-olds. But I do think they will develop, and I think, in a couple years, we're going to be talking about this freshman class.
You said 25 in the freshman class alone?
Close to that. It's around 23, 25 in
Nice.
that group. So it's a really good class, and it's a very close-knit group. We talked about that senior group kind of being tight this year. I think that freshman class, they really think a lot of each other. You can tell they've got a good brotherhood, and something we're definitely looking forward to building on in the future.
Well, that freshman group, you talk about having a good chemistry, and you playing this game, man, that is so important. If you got that one bad apple or two, and this decisiveness, that does not help at all. And they're a close-knit group. Everything's not going to be rainbows and unicorns. It's just not. But to hear that there's so much camaraderie with the senior group, with the freshman group, with that big of a freshman group,
right?
And that's big.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I can, I'll recognize them because we have the other groups. But
you're better. They're 25. They're going to come after you.
I won't spend too much time, but I do want to recognize Matthew Cardenas, offensive and defensive lineman, Xavier Chitwood, offensive defensive lineman. We've got Aiden Edwards, he plays running back and defensive back for us. Xavier Gregory, quarterback and safety. Damian Gum, offensive and defensive lineman. Carter Hansford, tight end, linebacker. Aiden Ireland, offensive defensive lineman. Tanner Jones, running back, cornerback. Mason Miller, wide receiver and cornerback. Jimmy Peters, running back, linebacker. Hayden Poland, running back, linebacker. Jeremy Rader, offensive and defensive lineman. Winston Sanderson, wide receiver, safety. Josh Sapp, offensive line, defensive line. Rob Singhofer, offensive line, D-line. Colton Tucker, offensive line, D-line. Caden Walden plays tight end and linebacker. Maddox Walters, tight end, linebacker. Jacob Wesley, wide receiver and safety. And then Jacob Newman with offensive and defensive line.
Wow. And
it's just a big group. Like I said, a lot of running backs, a lot of linemen, and then you've got your few receivers and your few tight ends in there too. So it's a good class. You've got the quarterbacking, Xavier. And I think, as we continue to develop these kids, there's few I may have to, maybe ask to play this year. But in the very near future, I think several will you'll be seen on Friday nights.
Well, you mentioned it earlier, and I can't remember who. The name escapes me. That a freshman, stepped up. It started last year on varsity. It's not out of the realm of possibility that's going to happen again this year if those guys continue to work like they have worked.
Well, Jackson Staley's who
That's
you're
it.
thinking
That's
of.
it. Thank you, Staley.
And Aiden Whitson also stepped up last year.
That's good.
As a freshman.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
And if you think back over the years, there's been very few. I mean, Devin LeClerc did. Christian Walden played some. Just names that I'm thinking about. But it's hard to play as a freshman on a 5A
really
football team on that schedule. But in saying that, I think there's 6 to 8 kids in this group that could possibly contribute this year. Now, how they develop between now and October, we'll see. And we don't want to put too much on them too fast.
Right.
But I do believe in them, and we have a lot of confidence in them, and they're getting a lot of valuable reps right now. And like I said, great class. We're very excited about continuing to develop them.
Man, that is really impressive. Nearly 25 in the freshman class. That's obviously the largest class, and from this guy that's been around this program for a long, long time, I hope every one of those guys becomes a senior football player.
Well,
hangs with it. Like, there's going to be good days, there's going to be really bad days, but hang tough, hang with it.
That's the thing about football, and we tell them all the time, you got to have a lot of perseverance.
Yep.
And it's not easy all the time. It takes a special kid to get out in the heat, to go practice a whole lot to get to those Friday nights.
Yep.
But those kids who can do it, I think it definitely is very rewarding at the end, and that's our goal. So far, they've stuck together, and we're going to try to keep them together.
Buffalo Wings and Rings Coaches Preview Show. I'm Josh McKinney along with Jason Foley. So that's seniors, juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. Coach, let's take it by positions, and you can get as in-depth as you want. Offensive coach, offensively this year, you said 25, 35 times. What, you going to chuck it this year? A little bit of run mixed in?
We want to be balanced.
That's always the key.
I think with our quarterback, Zach Benedict, it starts with him because he is the leader of the offense. And he's a dual threat kid,
Yes.
His arm strength has gotten much better. And, last year, young, sophomore, but you can tell he's definitely elevated his strength. His confidence, his poise in the pocket's gotten stronger. But you also want to use his legs because
Yes.
he's a 4'6", 4'7" kid, and he can run. And when he takes off and goes, he's like a running back. So we want to utilize that. But we'd like to have balance. We've got some good backs. You think about, Aiden Whitson and Jordan Lewis has looked really good early on for us in the backfield. Colson Ottman's that explosive back out of the backfield. Jackson Staley has come on and provided a spark for us that we didn't necessarily expect. Kendall Wesley, I can't say enough about him. Now, he's going to be making plays at receiver and in the backfield. But you got him back there. And then Caden Daugherty will step back there and make some plays too. Wide receiver-wise, Zabry Cox-Kendall has been leading the way. Caden Daugherty at tight end has been making a lot of plays, and you've got Blake Haynes, who's Cam Allen, who's coming in and giving those guys relief. And so we feel like we've got some good balance there with those guys. Framer steps in and plays some tight end too. But I think hopefully we'll have a balanced attack and get it going.
A lot of those guys, especially Benedict, lots of varsity starts last year, and he battled through last year and kind of took the job at the end of the year. You talk about all of those names, not starters returning from last year, but again, I mentioned it earlier, a lot of varsity playing time. They're just moving up to that starter role this year. There's a lot of talent there.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt. We're a young, you might call us an inexperienced group.
See,
but,
I wouldn't, but
but we
it's
do
tough.
we don't have starting experience.
There you
I'll put it
go.
that way.
Yeah.
But we've got. We do have a few, but we don't have a lot of starting experience.
true.
But we do have some kids that's got varsity reps, and I don't think they're going to. The moment's going to be too big for them when we get going. But I do think as we get some of those freshmen and sophomores more reps as the season, I think our team will get deeper as the season goes when our guys get varsity ready that's young. So.
Well, I like the fact that you're getting Thomas reps at tight end. That's always been huge in your offense.
Yeah, you think back to Brody Perkins.
That's the dude, man. That's the cat.
And
Yeah.
don't forget about Caleb Lunsford last
Absolutely.
year. So,
Yeah.
Caleb really come on last year. Brody's playing college football right now and at Morehead State.
Yeah.
So he was a big-time tight end. And then you have, like I said, Caleb. And so we definitely use the tight end. I tell my coaches all the time, it's a very important spot in my offense because I move them around. We'll put them in the backfield, what we call as an H-back, and it just really, really makes my offense go. And so you got guys like Caden Daugherty that's playing it right now, Sam Framer, Brody Walker, and then we've got a young kid in Caden Walden, freshman. He's a little ways away right now, but he looks very promising. And so those four kids are getting a ton of reps in that position right now.
Well, all of that can't happen without the big, beautiful guys up front. And we talked about them as we went through, classes. Those guys up front, what are we looking like this year?
Well, you've got two, horses up there with Caden Campbell and Devin Leclerc.
Absolutely. You know what they're going to bring.
And that's where it starts because they've got the experience, under their belt. I'm sure there's, maybe a better 1-2 punch somewhere, but I'll take those two against most anybody in high school football right now.
Absolutely.
And they're doing very well. They're so strong. Both of them, has worked their tail off this off season, and we're excited about their anchoring at tackle for us. We mentioned Strunk playing some center. Our guard play, we're looking at Jacob Kaiser, Zach Waters, Alex Davis. Those guys have really, kind of getting most of the reps. Trent Talon is playing some tackle for us too. And then we've got some young kids, Damian Gum, Colton Tucker. I think you'll see Aiden Ireland come in and get some reps. But like I said, we're trying to bring along those young kids, and they're definitely our future. Jeremy Rader, Matthew Cardenas, all those young freshman linemen. We're going to try to develop them. But it definitely starts with the two guys up front, and then you add in, like I said, those other guard play. And I think we've got a good group. They're very cohesive right now. They're working well together. And I think we'll be an improved group up front compared to last year, actually, because I think we've got a little more strength this year.
That's important because I know getting out of the gate last year, that was kind of one of those things that's giving you fits.
Yeah, we had a lot of new faces last year, and we got a few new this year. But like I said, I think we're a little older, a little stronger than we were last year up front.
Well, let's flip the script. Let's go defensive side. what are we looking like on the defensive side?
Well, defensively, there's a lot of new faces. We've got a new defensive coordinator, and I know we'll talk about him maybe in a little bit.
Indeed, I think he might be okay. I think
we've got a little bit of connection.
Maybe
we've worked together a little bit, so we're excited to have him back. But
Absolutely,
we'll talk about that in a minute. But as far as the player personnel goes, up front, it starts on the defensive line, just kind of like the offensive line. You've got Landon Krause, sophomore, who's looked great. He's very, very athletic defensive end. Devin Leclerc. He's going to be a force on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, he's 20 pounds, heavier than last year, and that's muscle. Woo. And he's moving better. He's much stronger, so he's going to be a force. Brody Walker, another defensive end, very athletic. Gabe Strunk, Caden Campbell, Trent Talent, Alex Davis. You'll see those 7 a lot, and that's not talking about any of our freshmen yet, but those 7 I think you'll see in that defensive front. We'll mix it up between a 3 and a 4 front both. And I think those guys can get it done, though. But there's some athleticism and some size there with them.
That's a good group. You mentioned the lack of starters, but still, with that, you still got experience coming back.
Yeah, we do. Devin has got a lot of experience, and Brody, especially those 2. And then Caden Campbell got some experience on the defensive side. Yeah. Gabe Strunk, Alex Davis, Landon Krause, Trent Talent. They're going to be a lot of, not a lot of experience there, but they're very capable young men, and I think they can get the job done.
That linebacking core, memory serves last year, that it seemed like at different times last year it was kind of who had the hot hand in practice that week that lined up at linebackers.
Right.
It just seemed like it was, I don't want to say interchangeable, but there were a lot of guys that saw a lot of action at linebacker last year.
Well, we were deep at linebacker.
You really were.
We had
and that's why.
6 or 7. I mean, you had a kid, Jordan Lewis, who started as a freshman.
Yeah.
And kind of played a backup role for us last year.
Very true.
And so we had some depth at linebacker. This year, not as much depth, but we do have 4 or 5 bodies that very capable. Thick, strong kids. Caden Daugherty's most experienced. I think he returns as the number 2 tackler from last year's team.
Yep.
And he's back, and you just got a nose for the football. He knows how to get around the field and play it. Sam Framer, Aiden Whitson, both of those 2 will be playing a lot of inside linebacker for us. And then on the edge, we'll be using Jordan Lewis a lot, who's got the most speed of the 4. And we'll probably, bring him off the edge, blitz him some, do different things with him. Those 4 are more of your veteran, older kids. Nick Doan has transitioned into that. He'd been a defensive back in the past, and now he's playing some outside backer for us too. So he's a senior, and he'll stick his nose in there and make some plays. So we're excited for him. As far as after that, your backups, Jimmy Peters, Maddox Walters, Hayden Poland, those 3's getting a lot of reps, and those 3 are freshmen right now. And so, our backups are young, but like I said, we believe in them, and we think we can get them there.
That secondary, I know it's always, when you go up against those teams that like to chuck it, man, they're really important.
Well, secondary, again, like the linebacker, as far as upperclassmen, we've got 5 or 6 that we're going to depend on a lot. Jackson Staley, Colson Eichman, Blake Haynes, Tayden Richardson, and Zabry Cox. Those guys are just, they're kind of leading the way for us. Zach Benedict will step in and play, and then Cam Allen, he'll come in and play a lot as well. We'll play Kendall Wesley at some corner, and then also a freshman, Mason Miller, has been looking really good early on too. So we got some depth, a little bit of inexperience in certain spots, but they're coming along and looking good.
One of my big question marks for your team this year as we transition to special teams, the loss of Jace Gager, and you kind of alluded to that earlier. Can I rest easy at night now knowing that there's an heir apparent to what Jace did?
Well,
Work in progress?
It's a work in progress.
Okay.
Randy Vu, we mentioned him.
Yep.
He's a soccer player. We actually haven't had too much time with him, 3 or 4 weeks right now.
Okay.
And he's got some promise, especially with field goals, extra points. Jordan Lewis has got a big leg. Maybe not the accuracy that Jace had or Randy, but he does have a strong leg. So we'll use him in kickoff some.
Okay.
But we're working them, and I think hopefully by mid-season, we'll have those guys in form and close to what Jason was doing for us.
That's why you get paid the big bucks, baby. All right, well, let's go. We kind of circled the topic, and your new defensive coordinator, that I say new, he is back. It's great to have your defensive coordinator back.
Oh, yeah. Mark Payne.
Absolutely.
Coach Payne and I go a long ways back. We go back to our middle school coaching days, back in 2010 to 14 range. That's where we connected. I got selected to coach an all-star team, and long story short, we connected. He was my D coordinator, and the rest is history. We connected. We made a great run at that point. Went to Taylor County in 2 years, won a region there, and then he came with me to Southwestern, and we did some big things. And we work well together. I think we complement each other well, our style, and we're excited to have him back. He's got head coaching experience, so he's had that role now, and so that managerial role has been very helpful too. And we're just excited to have Coach Payne back. And you won't find many guys that can scheme better than him.
Well said.
And he's very analytical, and he's going to scheme with the best of them. So,
if anything, there are so many pluses with Coach Payne. If anything, stability in your defensive coordinator position.
Absolutely, and we've, when Coach Payne left, we
It's
lost
difficult.
him. Yeah,
It's difficult to replace him.
We replaced him with a guy that went and got a head coaching job too, and so. There was some turnover there, but I think Coach Payne's going to bring that stability back for us, and on the defensive side of the ball. And Coach Payne's aggressive, and he's going to bring some heat. He does a great job of stopping the run, and that's what we like to do. So we're excited for him, and not only him, but the whole defensive staff.
I was going to say he's not the only one. Certainly.
Definitely want to mention those other guys. First off, Tim Edwards, probably more experienced than anybody on our coaching staff as far as in the blue and orange. And
are you calling him old? I think
not
you're calling
him
Coach
old.
Edwards
It's
old.
just
I
experience.
think you're calling him old, Coach. We love Coach.
But Coach Edwards is awesome.
Yeah.
He's disciplined. He's going to be coaching corners and be helping us a little bit wide receivers too. So he's been awesome for us. Does all the little things, and we appreciate him. Coach Logan Starnes, he'll be coaching safeties, and he also is our special teams coordinator. Coach Starnes has been with me now, I think, going on 3 years, maybe 4. I'm losing track, but he's really gotten better. Tate Morris has transitioned to the defensive side of the ball. He's always been a great offensive mind, but he's going to be working with linebackers, specifically outside linebackers, and then he works with the inside some, but outside linebackers a lot. And then Mark Cundiff, he'll still be with us working some inside linebackers too. And I think that group is our all the time group, and then we've got a couple of former players that's going to help us. You may remember Rowan Pennington.
I remember that name very well. Yes,
Roe was a great linebacker for us.
Man.
And he's going to help with our young kids and help aid us on Friday nights. I think that wraps up. George Gregory, who was with us in the early years, he's going to help a little bit in the secondary and statistics there too.
He could play it.
But the kind of basically is our defensive staff, and I think it's a good staff. I think they work well together. A lot of those guys that was with me in the very early years at Southwestern. So we're excited for what they can bring to the table.
That's a great group of defensive coaches. Do we get the offensive side?
The offense, no, not yet.
Okay.
We definitely want to mention them.
Yes.
Tom Murphy, quarterback coach, veteran, former Division I at Temple. Great rapport with our quarterbacks and does a lot for us. Peyton Saylor, offensive line coach for us, does an outstanding job in our gap scheme principles that we do with our ISOs and our power game. And so we're excited for everything that Peyton does. He does a great job in game with adjustments. Eric Minton is a long-time assistant for me. He's our wide receiver coach, head JV coach. Shane Cox. Shane Cox actually coached me in high school when I was at Russell County.
Really?
He was a young coach at that time, but he was my offensive coordinator, doing a lot of offensive coordinator duties for me. I'll still be calling the plays, but he'll be breaking down game film, getting our scouting reports together, and he kind of floats for me on the offensive side position base. But we're excited for Shane to be with us. Peyton Phelps, known as Tank.
He's back, baby.
He's back. and coaches tight ends, be working with our young line of scrimmage. So he brings a lot to the table. Was with us in those early years.
Back where he should be. You're back.
That's
Tank.
right. That's right.
Back where he
He's
should
back.
be.
And Tanner Wright, you may remember that name, along with Rowan.
Yeah, I think I remember that Tanner Wright young.
Tanner
young man.
Wright will be coaching running backs for us and working with a lot of our freshman JV level, and we're excited for him. And I do want to mention, somehow I overlooked this, Gordon Crow is my defensive line coach. Gordon played at University of Kentucky, team captain there, and we're excited for him on the defensive line too. And then last one that I want to mention, John Poe. John Poe played for us.
Yeah.
So we got 2 or 3 kids that played for us. He'll be helping with our young line of scrimmage. And I do want to make a shout out to Brian McGuffey. Coach McGuffey was strength and conditioning coach this off season and did a tremendous job. Anybody who knows me knows I put a lot into my strength program, and he was along with me and developed our program and did a great job with our kids. And so I think he's really got them ready on the strength side of things.
That's a great group of coaches, guys that have been around, and man, I'm really excited about the former players of yours, former Warriors that are coming back to the program. Coach, that makes me incredibly excited.
Well, we love to have alumni.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
It just means a little more.
It does. It does. They're invested.
And there's 2 or 3 of them that can't be in full-time roles, but they can be, help us with statistics and breaking down things or helping with our young kids, and hopefully over time we'll be able to get them in full-time roles. But we're excited. Rowan, John, and Tanner, those 3 played in the blue and orange, so they know what it takes, and we're excited for those guys.
Only a couple of minutes left, so whatever time they give us is never enough when we get together. I know you get it going on Friday at Barron County. You got Somerset back on the schedule this year. You're playing Rock on a Thursday. You got Pikeville in there as well, and you got another great schedule again this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a competitive schedule.
It is.
It's always competitive, and first and foremost, it's Barron County right now. That's what we're looking at, and they was in a region championship last year in the 6A level, and that's our focus. But yeah, it's a competitive schedule, and we've got some good opponents there, and looking forward to it. Our district's going to be tough as always. And you mentioned Pikeville. I mean, they're a state contender.
Yeah.
We got 6A Campbell County. Belfry's back on there. Belfry, they're going to be definitely a contender in their class. And then Rockcastle, one of the best defensive teams that they've had in their school history there. So it's a good schedule all around, and we look forward to embracing it and taking it one game at a time.
I know the theme this year is dig in, right?
Dig in. That's you just gotta dig in and get it done, and that's kind of been what we've been. Our foundation's been this off season, and like I said, a lot of youth. Maybe not a ton of starting experience, but we're looking forward to seeing these guys develop and grow as the years progresses, and see what we can put together.
I know you'll have them ready, and man, it's always exciting this time of the year, sitting down with you, finally getting back together and getting started going down this long road that we hope heads back to a region championship, if not beyond. And as you mentioned it, kind of as we started, and kind of wrap it with this. Didn't like that taste of not winning the district last year.
Well, we got used to it.
Yeah, that's right.
You like to maintain that,
Yeah.
but like I said, we've had a good run. I mean, it's been some fun games, big time district games, big time region games, and we look forward to competing again.
Coach, always appreciate the time. I would be remiss if I didn't give you the floor to let you say thanks to anybody you need to say thanks to. Appreciate administration always. Behind you and supporting you, family included. Like, you've got a great support group.
Well, I appreciate, my administration, Alex Eaton, Mark Flynn, all the way to the top with Matt Cook, Pat Richardson. We appreciate, everything that they do. I also want to shout out to my boosters. Got a really good boosters this year, and so I want to thank all of those. I don't want to mention names, but they're a great booster organization. And all the parents that support these young men, we appreciate them.
Absolutely, and of course, a couple great parents for you too, brother.
Oh yeah, I got a good family support. That's
Coach,
for sure.
Appreciate the time as always. Got to roll with it. Looking forward to going down this road with you, and thank you for everything you do for us, brother. It's always a pleasure.
Well, we appreciate you and all of Lake Cumberland Sports and all that you guys do in promoting our sports. Thank you, guys.
Always a pleasure. Jason Foley, as we are live at Buffalo Wings and Rings, Coach's Preview Show.
Toyota of Somerset, we're known for great service before and after the sale and so much more. Since 1988, Toyota of Somerset has been supporting our local communities. And we sell and service what a number of different rating services call the most fuel-efficient, dependable, and safe vehicles on the road. Toyota. Toyota of Somerset, South Highway 27 Somerset, and online at toyotaofsomerset.com. At Toyota of Somerset, we're all about
Here to come in 17500, here to come in 175.2. I 200 down, down, got it here to come in a quarter.
Like successful sports programs, putting together a successful auction takes a lot of planning, organization, attention to detail, and teamwork. And you need dedicated and committed people pulling together. At Ford Brothers Auctioneers, we've been successfully selling the country since 1965. Ford Brothers Auctioneers. Give us a call or visit us online at FordBrothersInc.com.
Ford Brothers Auctioneers, we're selling the country.
Now I can hear you. All right. Welcome back. LakeCumberlandSports.com. Paul Wright and Pulaski County coach Travis Burns here at Buffalo Wings and Rings. Have a little hookup and then go from there. All right, Coach. Last year was your first year at Pulaski County, 8-5. My first question, and I know you don't like this, but my first question is about you. What did you learn about you last year?
Well, first it was a new challenge. Honestly, it was. I learned that I could be a head coach, and there's always that in the back of your mind. You're not going to be very successful. Or I learned that I could be a head coach, but I also learned, I can take on those responsibilities, and it's a little different. Being a head coach, transition from assistant to head coach. It's a lot less like coaching. It's a lot more managing, organization. You're coaching.
Right.
You're coaching your coaches as well to get to the scheme you want. So, going into this next season, there's a lot more confidence in what we can do as a coaching staff and what we can do as a program.
All right, let's get down to talking about your football team. Again, 8-5 last year. A lot of weapons coming back. Championships are won on defense. Championships are won up front. Let's start with your defensive line.
Yeah, so, we had a few people graduate that had a lot of production, but we had a lot of guys step up this summer. First and foremost, that defense line is anchored by Connor Blevins. He, as a freshman, he started 70% of the games.
Right.
He's going to start for us again this year. He's really good at what he does. He anchors that line. You have Colton Kane. He's back. He played what we call the rebel, that hybrid position, but we moved him down to what we call the ET or the weekend. He had a lot of production last year, played a lot of minutes defensively for us. We have another two kids that are stepping up. They didn't play as much defense last year, but they're going to play a lot this year. Decker Wilden and Jet McEwen. Both of those, they play in for us. They're 6'5" and long, and they've done a really good job this offseason of stepping up and playing a different role. And then, we'll rotate a bunch of guys in. We'll rotate in Blake Taylor. He started in the playoffs as a center, but, he'll start center for us again this year, but he's going to play some defensive line.
Right.
Brady Hull is another guy that will play. Aiden Stringer, he's a sophomore that has really stepped up and is going to play a lot.
You've got, when you look at your depth chart, offense and defense, you've got a lot of guys playing both ways. But up front in 5A football, you have to have the depth.
You do, yeah. And, in any level, really, the goal is always to try to, what we call the platoon in them. We don't necessarily platoon, but what we like is to be able to get a rotation of, you're going to see a different crew on every single snap. And, that's one thing that we're blessed with this team is that we can, there's a plethora of D linemen, and we even got some young linemen that are stepping up. One that I didn't mention, but he's really stepped up more on the offensive side of the ball, and he's going to play some defense, is Andrew Cash.
Right.
And so, that's the one thing that we're blessed with is great offense and defensive linemen.
If you've got depth at the line, you're ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Those are hard to build.
Yeah, and especially early in the year, it's hard for those 280, 270, 300-pound guys to play in the heat that many reps. And so if you're able to rotate them in and play them, then you're good.
It's hard as an announcer to watch them play in that heat.
Exactly.
All right, let's go to the linebacking core.
Well, one thing about the linebacking core is we graduated everybody. Every linebacker that we had last year was a senior. And then, but we've got some guys that are stepping up. So Cohen Finley, number one, he played safety for us last year. He got moved down to the weak side, or what we call the wheelbacker. Brian Ford, that's one highlight of the offseason. In January, I came to Brian. I said, hey, you're going to have to gain this much weight, and you're going to have to get this strong. And he did that. And then, like this week, he's had an incredible week of practice. He's embraced that role as the Mike linebacker. And so,
What if anybody got hurt?
no. Yeah, Brian has done an amazing job. And then you have Kason Brock. He started for us at strong safety last year. He's back down playing Sam, and he's embraced that role as well. And then you have another young guy that plays strong safety for us, and strong safety is a hybrid position.
Right.
They'll play linebacker and they'll play safety. It's Winston Ford. So even though they're all new guys, they've played a lot of minutes across the board.
When you look at your depth chart, you show a 4-3. Mm-hmm. Will you adjust that? Does that change depending on opponents or what they might run or what have you?
Yeah, so that's one thing that we do. We're able to jump from an even front to an odd front to middle of the field close or middle of the field open, and pretty easily. Our kids do it like that now because they're so used to it. So it really just depends on a lot of different things. What are their personnel? What formations? What do they do out of those formations? So basically we try to look at that, and then we dictate what we'll do off of it.
Let's go to the secondary.
Yeah, so what you'll see is a lot of kids that have played, but you'll also see some kids that are really stepping up. So, the free safety, is a familiar name, Will Adams. He started every game for us as a freshman. He played corner last year. We've moved him back to the free safety. Like I said, you have Winston Ford that plays some strong safety for us, and he's done a great job this offseason. Now, and you've got a three-man rotation at the corner spot. Number 5, Toby Wright. He played a lot of receiver last year, not as much corner, but he's really stepped up this year. You have number 9, Chris DeZern, who's a sophomore. As you can tell, we've got a lot of juniors and sophomores that are playing for us. He really had a great camp time. He's really stepped up. He matured a lot. And then, he's got to start. He got the chance to start. And I tell those kids all the time, when your opportunity comes, seize it. And he did. And, he's earned his spot in the rotation. And then the last one, he changed his number, right? But number 0, Boone Godby.
Right.
He'll play some corner for us as well. And it kind of goes back to that thing. You want a nice rotation so you can rotate them in and out, because they also play, like you said, they play offense.
Right.
And so we want to try to keep their legs fresh as possible.
I didn't ask you a couple of questions. I will when we get to the offense. You have a good mix of veterans and freshmen and sophomores with talent, which is going to help in the future because you can keep rolling with some experience every year as you go on.
Yeah, that's one thing when I took over is that I wanted to do from top to bottom, from the youth league up through middle school and even in our program, is development, because we all know, we have these great classes, but in my mind, you should also be focused on developing your young guys, your freshmen, your sophomores, your 7th and 8th graders, and because at some point it'll be their time to step up.
Right.
And so, like you said, we have a good mix of veteran experience, played a lot of football, But then we have some young guys that are stepping up, and it's because they were developed and they are being developed throughout the course of the season.
All right, let's go to the offense and start on the line up front as always.
Yeah, so again, kind of the same thing. We have a lot of guys that we can rotate in and out. So, your left tackle is number 71, Brady Hull. Left guard is Colton Kane. Your center is Blake Taylor. Your right guard is a mixture. Brody Johnson, but he's nursing an injury right now, and we can't wait to get him back because he adds a different dynamic to the team. Andrew Cash has stepped into that role and played really well. You have Connor Blevins, but then you have a whole range of guys too. You have Jackson Wells, who's a freshman. He come off an injury and really hadn't played the whole year last year, but he stepped up in the time that he's got. You have Brody Coleman, Aiden Stringer, Levi Bashirs. You have, like I said, you have this whole array of just linemen that you can rotate in, and they're going to be productive.
These guys, the guys you were talking about, not the starters, but the others, go anywhere from 250 to 285. In the olden days, freshmen and sophomores at that size didn't have the quickness to play at the high school level.
No, and that goes back to development. So one thing I brought in was a different perspective to strength and conditioning. The old school way was let's get as big as we possibly can, as strong as we possibly can, and that was kind of the focus. But now what we really focus on, we don't want what's called sloppy. We want you to be well built. Whatever you add, it should be lean muscle mass, and then we really focus on speed and agility. Every day in the off season, even the middle school kids, they're doing bag work, they're doing footwork drills, they're doing quickness drills. And so that is because they're being developed. By the time they get to being a freshman, they're able to play.
Just an aside for just a minute. Have you seen the 8th grade team? Those guys are huge.
They are, yeah.
You've seen them, I bet.
I have.
All right, let's talk about the backfield.
Well, kind of goes back to what you said. There's a lot of veteran experience. Kason Brock, this is his third year at the, what we call the B-back position. And, you can't, there's not enough I can say about him. 1,500-yard rusher as a freshman, 1,500-yard rusher last year as a sophomore. He does some things sometimes that I look at and I'm like, ooh, that's special. And then, you have a sophomore, Winston Ford, that he got a few, touches last year, and then he's really stepped up. He's going to play what we call our slot or our A for us, and that's kind of the hybrid guy. He plays slot and he plays the running back some in our two-back sets.
Right.
You have Caden Carrier, who has really stepped up, and I tell the coaching staff and I tell our kids, like, the reason Caden Carrier is getting the ball is because he ran so well on the scout team.
Right.
Last year he was our scout team running back, and I know, during the scout team running back kind of gets picked on sometimes, because
Sure.
Yeah, but he embraced it and he ran really well and really hard, and he earned himself those touches. And then you have Brian Ford, and Brian Ford's our fullback. When we need to run through somebody's face or get in our yard, he's the guy that we're going to put in, and he's going to do it.
I saw the scrimmage last week against Taylor County, and the thing that stuck out to me with Brock and Winston Ford and Carrier was they all ran hard.
Yeah, we had an initiative this off season about once you see the hole, we're going to accelerate through it because we're going to run through those arm tackles, and something that might be a 5-yard gain, if you run and accelerate, and once you see the hole, we're big enough. Kason is 200 pounds.
Right.
He's faster than what you think he is. When you look at him, he's a lot faster. Winston's the same way. We do a pound for pound factor in our off season, and Winston had the highest pound per pound factor at 5.4. So that's in 3 lifts. He was 5 times stronger.
Right.
And then Kane Carrier is a 195-pound back. So if we just accelerate and hit the hole like we're supposed to, we're going to get those yards we need. And it's an emphasis of every yard matters.
You talked about Brock, and what he did offensively the last couple of years, okay? And you've got Ford and Carrier to take some of the load off. But he's such a good offensive player. He's such a good defensive player. Which way do you decide to rest him, and how do you make that decision?
Well, from a coaching standpoint, it's easier to get a spell on offense than it is defense.
Okay.
And my logic behind that is, if you get a spell on offense and you get a 2-yard gain, or you got another down.
Right. Right.
If you get a spell on defense and it's possibly 7.
Okay.
And I'm a defensive guy, so
Right.
that's kind of the way I look at it. And so, I look at it, it's, nothing against Kaysen. Like you said, Kaysen has done, he's a great running back.
Right.
He's coachable. His merit is in his stats and everything else. But, those other guys have done just as good, in the sense of, like,
Right.
they've earned the chance to. And that just makes us a better football team.
Sure.
When you've got 3 really good backs that can, bang it up in there and make big runs, that opens up the passing game. That opens up a lot of different things. And then, like you said, he's not having to take, 30 hits a game.
Right.
He's not having to
Right.
take, and so that just makes our football team better.
Sure. You want him out there carrying the ball. You want that 1,500 yards, but at the same time, you got a long way to go between now and the time it gets cold.
Yeah, and that's our kids know our expectations, and I have high expectations for our players, but they have high expectations for themselves, and so we look at it like we want to be. It's a 15-round fight, and we want to be in round 15.
I talked to you a little bit about it the other day. Talk about the usage with your tight end.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer. The tight end spot is the most versatile spot in the game of football. If you watch college or you watch the NFL, tight ends earn a lot of money, and so we've had a renewed effort to make that a focal point. And we've got 3 guys that kind of rotate in at tight end, and we've named all of them.
Sure.
Decker Wilden, right? He plays a lot of tight end for us. Cohen Finley, Cohen Finley is, he'll play our Y, but also, one thing we told our offensive line is just watch Cohen Finley when he's blocking. He's 175 pounds, 180 pounds, but with the intensity and the tenacity that he gets after that guy, that's what we should be. And then Jet McEwen has rotated in and played some tight end for us. Like it's kind of the same thing. All 3 of them have earned the right to play and get touches.
All right. How about the wideouts?
So, it's kind of a lot of familiar names from last year. You have number 0, Boone Godby.
Right.
And then, he's, he knows how to get open. He knows how to do it. He's going to catch the ball when you throw it to him. Toby Wright, that's one name. Toby is I don't understand, but he is great at the double move. Last year he would burn us on scout team with a double move, an out and up or
Right.
hitching up, and he's just really good at it. So you got him, Will Adams, that's different. Will, he's our backup quarterback, but Will is a gamer. Will is a sophomore. What a lot of people don't know about Will's a sophomore, but he's checking into coverages on our defense because he's a smart football player.
Right.
He's coaching up the corners. He's just a sophomore, and he's coaching up the corners because he has so much experience and he knows what to do and he tells them what to do. He's a great leader for us. You have number 4, Parker Burton. That's a familiar name. But he come over from Southwestern last year, and tell about Parker. Parker's a gamer. So we go to the EKU 7-on-7. We're playing Paducah Tillman, and it's the very last play of the 7-on-7, and Parker makes the game-winning touchdown catch. So he's going to play a huge role for us in that. So you have Cohen. He plays the slot receiver as well. And then you have Chris DeZern, who will play some slot receiver as well.
All right. We haven't talked about the quarterback yet.
Well, quarterback's the same. He was junior, Zach Anderson. And Zach is first off, he's a great leader. Two, he's one that is very coachable. He's going to do what you ask him to do, and he places the ball perfectly. We tell our guys all the time, you want to place it here or there, and he's going to put it right where it's supposed to be. And just that leadership, that energy that Zach gives, like you can't replicate that.
No, you cannot. And again, 4th year in the program, 3rd year quarterback. He's been there, seen it, done it. So,
and this is a 2nd year, and it's a similar system, but 2nd year in
Right.
in the new system. So he's only going to keep getting better.
you line up in the 1 back, you line up in the 2 back, you spread the field. Describe your offense. What do you call it?
I call it the power spread. That's kind of so. We're gonna modern football. You have to spread defenses horizontally and vertically.
Okay.
Right, but also you have to run the ball. That's at the end of the day when you get into November and it's cold and wet and rainy, and if you can't run the football, you're not going to win the game. And so everything that we do is centered around running the football. So we. Like you said, we'll get in 1 back sets, 2 back sets. We'll have 1 tight end, 2 tight end. We'll be bunched up or spread out wide. And everything that we do is centered around. We want to open running lanes for our backs. And then once we start establishing that good run game, then we're going to pull and do play action or RPO. And, to spread the defense out, we'll throw screens and do different things. But it's all to create seams in the defense and get them going.
Well, you said earlier you're a defensive guy, so I knew that running the ball was going to be part of the equation because that's what defensive guys do. It's a contact sport,
Yeah, and we want to be balanced as much as possible.
Sure.
And that comes back from the best defenses that I ever went up against, or best offenses that I ever went up against. They were balanced, and we couldn't ever get a good gauge on what they were trying to do or what they were doing. And so, we want that balance also.
All right, let's talk about camp. I know you had, you went away for 3 or 4 days, but you also did some early morning stuff and, building team unity, building the work ethic.
Yeah, so, camp is there's a few reasons as to why we go away and go to camp. The first reason is adversity. Camp is not easy. It's tough. Like you said, you have early morning practices. We're grinding, and we go down there, and it's hot, and there ain't no shade, and but we do that because adversity reveals character.
Right.
Right. So I, as the coach, need to know that when the bullets are flying and it's a tough game, and we need a touchdown in the 4th quarter, are you gonna do it or you're not? Right. So camp reveals that. The second thing is, kids today, players today have so many distractions,
right.
Whether that be, the phone or this, that, or the other. And so we pull them out of their normal environment and go to camp so they can just focus on football, focus on being a team.
Right.
And, and when adversity strikes, teams do 2 things. The good ones come together and they move forward. The bad teams will go up into little groups and they complain about the coaching or the other players or this or that. And so we would rather, as a football program, we would rather have that adversity strike now than game 9 or game 10 or the first round of the playoffs, and then we don't see the character of our team. And so that's what that reveals, and that's why we go to camp. And, it was a great camp this year. The best 2 weeks of practice were after camp.
Okay. The first day of school, I come rolling in late afternoon, wanting to catch the end of practice. You practiced at what time?
6:30 a.m.
And again, is that a come together type thing? Well, why that early? And I know you did it several times during the summer.
Well, we always do the first day of school. We always do it in the morning, and there's a few reasons. In my coaching career, the first day of school practice usually is the worst practice because, they're getting used to their school schedule. They're thinking about all their classes. They see their friends and they see their girlfriends and so typically it's the worst day of practice. But also, too, I'm a big believer, it's like 1% of high school football players will go on to play at the next level.
Right,
So,
right.
they're students first. I want them to come in, they're used to the morning schedule, have a good day of practice in the morning, and then they can go out and they can focus on what they need to do for school. You have all this paperwork, and you meet your new teachers and you get your new classes, and so it's kind of twofold. One, it's the worst day of practice,
Right.
and then two, I would like for them to focus because they are students first, and they need to focus on that day.
Let's talk about your coaching staff.
Yeah, so not much really has changed over from last year to this year. We added a few new people, so you have our OC, Josh Roberts, and that's a familiar name
Right.
in Pulaski County for the Maroons. He did a great job for us last year in his first year as the OC, and one thing I love about Coach Roberts is he's open to debate. You get some coaches and they get so set in their ways they don't want to grow, and
Right.
Coach Roberts isn't like that. He's like, hey, I just want to win. You have Darren Meese. He's our O-line coach. He's back. He's a familiar name. He played at PC.
Right.
You have Jacob Denny. He coaches DBs and receivers for us, and he's a PC alum. You have Phil Russell. He's a new guy. He was on the coaching staff for a long time,
Right.
and we brought him back this year.
He's the old guy.
He's an old guy,
Right.
yeah. Which is, he's really not that old, but compared to me, everybody else, he is.
Right.
Then you have Jackson Mobley. He's another PC alum. He coaches special teams and linebackers for us. You have Tyler Stone. Another PC alum. He coached at the middle school for a few years, and then he's up with us. You have Tyler Ball. He coaches JV O-line, D-line. You have Jacob Gross, who, Coach Gross is my right-hand man. He's the head JV coach and director of football operations. I tell some people sometimes, if you need something to know, go ask him because he knows it before I know it. And you have Logan Sledge. He's a new guy that we added to the staff.
Okay.
And then that rounds out the coaching staff for the most part.
You talking about Josh being the OC. Do you call the defense?
I call the defense, yeah.
Okay. Josh was a defensive guy. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you told me last year that inside every defensive coordinator is an offensive guy trying to get out.
Oh, yeah. All defensive coordinators are closet offense coordinators.
Talk about the relationship that you two have as far as getting the game plan ready and doing what you want to do.
Well, that was one thing, when I first took this job, one of the first the first person I talked to was Josh. When I sat down and met with him, and, what I took away from that and what it's been the whole time is, like, he was willing to work and willing to do, like, he wanted to be a part of it, and he didn't have an ego about it, and he was willing to, he brought his own ideas and his own kind of system, but then he's willing to add on to what because I worked for Justin Haddix, who, in my opinion, is the best offensive mind in the state of Kentucky, and it's not even close.
Okay.
And so, Josh had his system. I brought what I learned from Coach Haddix with me, and that's kind of what you see. It's kind of a blend of Coach Roberts' stuff and then what we did with Haddix. He's always forward. He's like, he wants to score touchdowns and win ball games.
Sure.
That's all he cares about.
I asked Josh about scripting the beginning of a game, and he said he kind of wants to get the formations out there. Mm-hmm. But he said on the script, if you've got the third play is long down the field, he said if you've got 3rd and 1, that's really not what you need to be doing.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of Coach Roberts. He'll script out 10 plays, but then, at the end of the day, if it's like you're saying, if the situation in the game changes, well, let's just get the first down, and then we can go back to that script. And we always want to get out because, you always want to see how you got some teams that are what I call flavor of the week. There's not a true system in place. They kind of do their own thing, and then, if they think this is going to win, then that's what they'll do.
Right. Let's talk about this schedule. On Saturday, I have you open on the road at Henderson County.
Yeah, so, the way that worked out is we were supposed to play in the Pigskin Classic again.
Right.
It kind of worked out that, we were supposed to play Ironton, Ohio, and, I said no. And the reason I said no is not that we wouldn't play them. You can obviously see the schedule.
Right, yeah.
But it doesn't help us with the RPI.
Right.
The RPI is the big thing that, like, if you want to host a playoff game, you got to have a great RPI.
Correct.
And then it come back and, we were supposed to play Corbin, which was a conflict because we already played Corbin
Right.
week 4. And so we just got out of the Pigskin and we were looking for a game, and Henderson was looking for a game. And I'm familiar with Henderson because when I was at Boyle, we traveled to Henderson to play.
Okay.
And so we just kind of messaged, and, it worked out. We said we'd play Saturday. They'd come back to us next year. And so, at the end of the day, the way I look at it is, like last year when we went to Highlands, we had a 3-hour bus ride.
Right.
So, it does cost a lot of money, but, we might have to do that. So I want our kids to be familiar with it.
When you get so far into the playoffs, they go to the RPI. How do you like that system?
Well, here's the way I look at it. When I was at Boyle, it was very good to us. Mm-hmm. Because we had the best RPI. We got to host a lot of playoff games.
Right.
Last year, in the old system, you have a little bit better chance to make a semifinal. Mm-hmm. In the sense of, we wouldn't have had to travel 3 hours to
Right.
go play a team. And so each system has its pros and cons. I'm a fan of the RPI. I think it does need to be fixed a little bit and
Right.
tweaked. We would have played Ironton if it would have helped our RPI in any way, because
Sure.
that's a good football team.
Yes, it is.
But it
Always
doesn't.
is.
It doesn't really help us, in the grand scheme of it. And so, those are some things, and it hurts like teams that are on the border that play Tennessee teams or Ohio teams or whatever,
Right.
Because they're not getting that boost.
And you play, and again, as we go down through here, there are a lot of 6A schools
Yes.
on this roster right here.
Yeah, there's 4.
4, I think. Mhm.
4, and then your first 2 lower class games equal to. So we played Corbin and Johnson Central. Those are our 2 lowest to start.
Right.
So we win those games. Those are actually like 5A games.
Right.
And so when you look at it, we wanted to make sure play 6A teams. We wanted to play teams. Either 6A teams, or we wanted to play teams that would have great records by the end.
Right.
Because we played Danville last year, and I'm not knocking Danville, but they went 0-10.
They were struggling.
And they didn't help us a bit.
No.
We got a win in the win column, but it didn't help us in the playoffs. It really actually hurt
Right.
us. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of my goal with this schedule, is like I want to be able to say that we did our best to make sure that we can host a region championship game or a state semifinal for our fans, and that's the goal.
This is LakeCumberlandSports.com at Buffalo Wings and Rings. Here in Somerset, I'm Paul Wright, Pulaski County coach. Travis Burns. After Henderson County, you go to Boyle County and play Bryan Station.
Yeah, so that was just kind of another thing. I always like to be honest. That is a game that we're getting paid to be in that
Sure.
game, and that goes kind of into our budget. But also too, I've been a part of that bowl
Sure.
for 8 years when I was there at Boyle, and it's a very well put on bowl game. They take care of us as a team playing in it, and you're going to play a quality opponent. You're playing Bryan Station, another 6A team.
All right. After that, you go back on the road for the 3rd week in a row. We go to North Hardin.
Yeah. So another 6A team in North Hardin. I'm very familiar with Coach Thompson from playing when I was at Boyle. We played North Hardin a few times, and it goes back also to the Bryan Station game and North Hardin game. They're going to have a lot of speed, and that's one thing that we need to be able to see early in the season is speed, because when we get to the playoffs, you're going to see teams that are faster than you, and some coaches shy away from that, or they get scared about it. To me, if you play fast, that's all that matters.
Is that one thing you're concerned about going into this season, is the speed?
No, not necessarily. To me, if you play fast, that negates speed. If you play smart, that negates speed. Right? If you do those things, if you're physical, that negates speed.
But you want to get used to seeing it.
But we want to get used to seeing it, yes.
Right. Talk to me about the next game. Oh, by the way, the home opener is Corbin.
Yeah, so, Corbin has kind of become a bit of a rival for us, and I would think the same because, Coach Salmons, right after the season, he was like, we need to keep this game and play it. And they deal with the same things that we deal with. There's not a whole lot of teams in this surrounding area that will play us.
Correct.
And
right.
So it's, it just kind of works out both ways. Like, hey, we'll play you, you play us, and
that's going to give you a pretty good gauge on where you're at by the time you finish those first 4 games.
Yeah. And like I said, I would rather, like, if we're 5-5, I can, as a coach, hold my head up high and say we play quality opponents.
Right.
We didn't play teams that, we could have try to schedule teams that were easy wins, in the win column, but we want to see quality opponents because guess what? We're going to see quality opponents when we.
You're more worried about the weeks in November than you are the weeks in September.
Yeah, 100%. That's my whole. I want championships. The kids. That's the great thing about this team. They want championships. They have high expectations for themselves, and that's why we work so hard.
Okay, you get a home game, and then for the 4th time in 5 weeks on the road. Let's go to West Virginia, or close to it, Johnson Central.
Yeah, so it just kind of, like I said, it comes back to, who you're going to see in the playoffs, and you try to get them familiar. In 5A football, you get a team like Scott County that runs a very unique system of offense, and, Johnson Central's a quality opponent. And like I said, it's hard to schedule games with the surrounding opponents for us.
Right.
And so, when you're a 5A team in this area and all the other 5A teams in this area, you're in your district. Unfortunately, especially now with the RPI,
right.
Back in the day, you didn't have that problem because RPI wasn't a thing, so it didn't really matter. But now with the RPI, teams schedule, they just want wins. So.
All right. You finally get to come home. Oh, by the way, let's play South Warren in your spare time.
Well,
that's a darn good football program.
It is, yeah. And so, Brandon Smith, their head coach, I worked for his dad for a long time, Chuck Smith. And Brandon and I have a great relationship, a good coaching relationship. Sure. And, I know they're going to be well coached. They're going to have speed. I'm honest, the best team in 5A for the past few years has been Bowling Green. Mm-hmm. And so this is it's a great litmus test to see where we're at against a well-coached team with great speed.
All right, the district after a week off, the district starts at home against South Laurel.
Yeah, Coach Hines has done an amazing job with South Laurel. They had a winning record for the first time in a while. We went 5-6 my last year I was there, and so another great test. They're going to be well coached, and we got to come ready to play.
And that gives you a look at a system you may see from some of these other teams down the road.
Yeah, spread it out, throw the ball.
Right. All right, on the road at North Laurel.
Yeah, North Laurel, another quality opponent. So Coach Nelson does a great job. They're going to be big and physical. And, we've got to be able to match that.
You go from one extreme to the other. You go from the spread to a power football team in North Laurel in the district, which it's a challenge to go back and forth.
It is, yeah. But, that's high school football. You're going to, one week you'll see a spread team, and the next week you're going to see somebody that likes to get in the eye or the wishbone and run the ball. And then, you'll see wing tee or belly option. That's high school football.
Yep. And then there's the rivalry at home against Southwestern.
Yeah, Coach Foley does a great job over there, and that the proof is in the pudding. They dominated this district, and they dominated us as a football program for a long time.
Right.
So they're going to be well coached. They're going to be physical. and that's always a great game. Our kids love it.
How hard is it the week before and the week after a game like that to keep your team focused?
Well, I think it's all how you approach it. If you just approach it like, you've got it circled on your calendar, for us, we go, we respect the process.
Right.
We're going to focus on Henderson, and then we're going to focus on Bryan Station, then we're going to focus on North Hardin. That's what we're focused on. We're not going to look down. And so our kids, I will say that's one thing they do a great job of. They focus on the here and the now. We talk about, and that's kind of been the theme since camp, everybody wants the A and the Z, but they don't want to go through the B, through the Y.
Right.
Right. So our kids do that. They do a great job of that. And this week, they've been focused on that.
All right. Dudley Hilton has won a game or two at Bell County. You finished the regular season on Log Mountain.
Yeah. So, the old way of scheduling was kind of schedule 10 straight games and then leave that game open. I don't believe in that.
I was getting ready to ask you that question. That was going to be my next question.
I don't believe in that. I think you get out of, specifically for the playoffs, you get out of a rhythm. You're in a rhythm of practicing and playing, and then you have that bye week, and then all of a sudden now you got to get back in that rhythm of playing. So we want to play a quality opponent. Like when I was at Boyle, we always played Frederick Douglass. That was the last game. Last game of the year, and so. To me, it's going to keep us fresh. Coach Hilton, it's going to be a well-coached team. They're going to be physical, and they're going to, that's a team that's going to sit at 9-1, 8-2, or 9-0 and 8-2, or something like that. And that's a good game for us.
When you look at the schedule as a whole, you're looking at North Hardin's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Corbin, Johnson Central, Bell County, South Warren. These are names that people know. These are names that have been at the top of high school football for, it seems like, forever.
Yeah, our motto is the chase. Last year it was what's our name? Kind of getting that respect back.
Right.
Because what a lot of people don't know about Pulaski County, it's one of 10 teams that went to the state championship game 4 times in a row. One of 10. Mm-hmm. There's 200 and something playing schools in the state of Kentucky. And so, we wanted to earn that, get back on track, and I think we did that last year. We went 8-5, beat our rival for the first time in 6 years, won the district first time in 6 years, played in a region championship game first time in 6 years. But then now it's the chase, and the chase is all about, the Bowling Greens, the South Warrens, Corbins, all those teams. Those are what we want to get back to that. We want to be a program that when you hear their name, they're respected, and and so we're chasing after what they have. So
you talk about expectations. As a coach, do you set individual goals? Do your players set team goals? Is it a combination? What are you looking for when the season ends?
Well, I think it's a lot of different things. So, I wouldn't say individual goals as like, you're going to have this many rushing yards and this, that, because I don't believe in that, because that makes the player a selfish player.
Okay.
Because you can have 20 rushing yards, but then we win the game.
Right.
So what's the most important thing? We won the game. But they do have some individual goals about growth, and, I want them to grow. And then, with goals, it's always kind of, we're going to win the next game. That's the first goal. We're going to win the next game. Okay. And then obviously we want to win the district. And then with winning the district, we want to win a region championship. And then play in a state semifinal. I've told the kids last year, and I tell them this year, like, that's my expectation year in, year out, is that we're playing in a state semifinal game.
Okay.
And then the state championship game. And so that's kind of the goals. Like, we don't have individual goals. We have team goals, and that's what we do.
I knew that was going to be the answer I was going to give, but I asked the question anyway. After going through the spring, after going through the summer, what do you like about your football team?
Well, I will say, first off, we have a lot of experience. We have a lot of toughness. We play with a lot of physicality. What I like is we were so much further ahead this year than we were last year. And so that is a positive. Another positive, we had a lot of people step up and play. So that's what I was pleased with.
All right. We will talk to you again sometime on a Saturday in Missouri. No, Pulaski County and Henderson County, 7 o'clock on Saturday evening on LakeCumberlandSports.com. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Toyota of Somerset, we're known for great service before and after the sale, and so much more. Since 1988, Toyota of Somerset has been supporting our local communities. And we sell and service what a number of different rating services call the most fuel-efficient, dependable, and safe vehicles on the road. Toyota. Toyota of Somerset, South Highway 27 Somerset, and online at toyotaofsomerset.com. At Toyota of Somerset, we're all about
Here to come in 175-100, here to come in 175-2. I-200 down, count it, here to come in a quarter.
Like successful sports programs, putting together a successful auction takes a lot of planning, organization, attention to detail, and teamwork. And you need dedicated and committed people pulling together. At Ford Brothers Auctioneers, we've been successfully selling